I wonder if we might be able to imagine what circumstances must have conspired in order for a man's life to be recorded by history. His greatest achievement in life is simply his death. A death that is tragic, defiant, heroic, but nonetheless brutal. It's an amazing story, and as a teacher I love stories. I use stories all the time. I've used stories for decades. I've loved diving into stories as an individual, and I've loved using stories in my classroom to bring lessons alive. And I've come to a certain point in my career where I think we've really got to shake teaching up. We've really got to shake this 200-year-old academic model to its core. And I think stories can be a part of that. And so my message today to this audience that's listening, particularly our young people obviously, is to seriously consider teaching. It is a heck of a time to join teaching. It is a remarkable time because we've still got to create the future of teaching. Let me introduce you to someone spectacular. This man is Tony Kurtz, and he is forever 26, and it's his story that I was referring to. This monster is the 4,000-metre Eiger in Switzerland, and it's 1936. Tony is a German, and he and 3 colleagues are seeking to be the first to climb the Eiger. Eiger's got 10 scalps or so to its name already. It's a fearsome, fearsome mountain. Now, I hope a couple of you are starting to have some red lights go off and think, German, 1936? You bet, Europe was bubbling at this time. And conspiracy theorists have that in one of the backpacks of Tony or his 3 colleagues is a giant swastika that's to be held aloft at the top of the summit. It's a remarkable climb because 4,000 metres straight up the fearsome north face, it's allegedly 2 or 3 hour stroll down the back to the mountains, to the restaurants and hotels where people watch you live or die as you seek to climb. A couple of events conspired, split-second decisions that had no immediate consequences, but brought about the death of those 4 men. They turned back with the summit in sight to look after one of their colleagues who had been badly injured. A fair bit of pressure. A couple of months out from the Berlin Olympics, the prospect of Hitler's admiration at Germany claiming the summit of the Eiger, leading into the display that was to be the Berlin Olympics, and then on to Europe and then obviously the world. It didn't go according to plan. They turned back, and as because of one of their decisions, 3 of them were almost mercifully killed instantly in an avalanche. Tony Kurtz was left hanging 20 metres above his rescuers, about 2,000 metres up this mountain. For 24 hours, he fought and defied death. The reason he couldn't get to his rescuers was another split-second decision had been made by one of his rescuers. And he was trying to force a knot through his carabiner, and he ultimately died. Look, it's a fabulous story, but search his life, and all you can find really are movies, books, but it's his last 4 days. There's no background to Tony, and I just wonder where he drew the courage, where he learned the sort of qualities that he displayed in those last 4 days. And you might also be wondering, what on earth has this got to do with teaching? Well, I'd love to use stories in my class. Stories bring teaching alive. I really don't like the alternatives. I have an academic itinerary that I've got to follow, that I've got to present each term. And in this case, it included epitaphs and biography and writing a movie script. The alternatives are a textbook, which is like a handbook for teaching, I suppose, or worse, a worksheet, which are simply an educational crime. So I design units of work, and we bring this alive. For one lesson, the chapel wall here was the Eiger for these boys. But in their minds is a collaborative movie script they've put together, and they have hunted high and low and read the story of Tony Kurtz. They've designed a headstone and written an epitaph for him. One boy painted or dyed roses black one weekend in order to put around his headstone. But more importantly, they had to write a biography. Now, I love Cathy Freeman. We all love Cathy Freeman. But how many biographies of Cathy Freeman do you think have been written with information plundered from Wikipedia, done on a worksheet, handed in, done, tick the box, move on, biographies taught? This is about bringing stories alive, and there are 3 key reasons why we need to use stories in our classrooms and in our teaching, and I think to set the path into the future of education. First of all, the nature of stories is such that they have all these features joined together. Everything is interconnected. You can pull a small part of a story out and then dig deeper and deeper. It's representative of true learning. We're the people who put subjects in place. A story like Tony Kurtz's takes you through history and through music and culture. There is an enormous culture to climbing in the mountains in Europe. The second reason is if you use stories with so many launching pads, you get unique responses from your students. And whoa, red lights, alarms, academic model, can't handle it. But thirdly, using and completing work like this for boys dignifies their intellect. You cannot demonstrate your intellect with a pen, solely with a pen. We are stuck with this academic monster. You've got to pick your fights. I can't change it at year 11 and 12, but we cannot use our junior schools and middle schools as rehearsals for an exam and a waste score at the end of it, which more and more people are beginning to see are not representative of your capacities or your potential. Teaching needs a game changer and it needs a new team. So I use stories like a Trojan horse. We might go through 15, 16 stories in a year. Extracts of novels, never a whole novel. And from that we build into it, I build into it tasks and activities. That yes, one of them always spectacularly tries to bring it alive, but the story fills up with colour and noise the activity. So the skill or the understanding is developed thoroughly, enduringly in the class. We have a disconnect between reality and our school system. We all know the world is changing. Countless thousands of teachers, good teachers, know things have got to change. They know deep down we can do it better. But the operation of this monster is such that there's no time to sit and discuss it. Well, there's got to be. We've got to start to make the change, and it's junior school and middle school where we can start to do it. And that's why the prospect of becoming a junior school or a middle school teacher, if things are starting to light up for you and you can think of stories, it's something to think about. It's going to be a rollicking ride. But the big thing to deal with in a classroom is that the intellect is as unique as a fingerprint. It is the personality of your brain. And I don't think there's anyone that can put their hand up and suggest that you reveal the personality of your brain in an essay or a test. We use that as default positions. There are countless thousands of good teachers out there who engage their class, deliver the content and get a good result. We're very, very good at it. We've been doing it for over 200 years. And all of us know that it's got to change. We've got to broaden the band from good to very good teachers. We've got to find a team of mentor, outstanding teachers. They're going to need to have some pretty big skills. But intelligence these days, your capacities are what, not just for a job. This is not just about being employed. This is about being engaged, active participant in society. Otherwise, you're condemned to the fringes. And these are the skills we look for. Innovation, creativity, problem solving, collaborative problem solving over a distance. Technology, yes. These are critical developments. Your waste score doesn't indicate your capacity to do these. We see universities plunder our brightest students before you do your waste. They just want a good conversation with you and go, I don't know what the job's going to be yet, but I want you in my company. That's the reality. It's very easy to stand here and condemn year 11 and 12. I know that. That's not my goal. My goal is to say we cannot let the shadow, the pressures there, fall all the way down to junior and middle school. We need people who are absolutely committed to changing the assessment model, because we assess what we value. We assess what we value in schools. And if we keep saying, yes, we're going to be creative, and yes, we're going to have innovation, but it comes back to that absolute tunnel of test, essay, we're not being serious. We need to change and understand that assessment is about demonstrating your understanding. And if we're true to that, we understand the diversity of people's intellect, we have to change the nature of assessment. And what is happening in junior and middle schools is that we are being pressured to follow the senior school model. Show me a NAP plan for creativity or innovation, then I think we're getting serious. But to aspire to an average NAP plan for most schools is laughable. demonstrations of understanding. That's what technology can help us do. Technology is not about speeding up the past. Technology is about game changer. But technology's been here for a while. It's not the future. It's very, very much the present. But using video, working collaboratively, making your learning visible and your thinking visible has got to be the goal. It's got to come back to our classrooms. It's what the art of teaching and the science of learning is about. That's what we've got to get our minds back on. Not getting defensive and publishing results, numbers, because they're becoming less and less meaningless. The rest of the world knows it. And deep down, we all know it as well. Let's try something. See if there's a couple of lights going on for some of you. The academic itinerary, the task is a compare and contrast. That's what I've got to deliver. This is the opening line of the last chapter of a stunning novel. The lamentations rang through the frosty air and touched the stars. My own mouth opened in a silent howl of grief. The cries went on trembling and lingering, but God forgive me, I wanted them to end. It's the first line of the last chapter of Beryl Bainbridge's novel, Every Man for Himself, which is about the Titanic. You know, the real story. There's no beautiful singing at the end in this novel. The students in my class didn't get the novel, they got the last page. And their task was to create a piece of writing, a powerful piece of writing, as well as a compare and contrast. But I've got to bring it alive. It's the last moments of the Titanic. It's 4 a.m. The rescue ship's not there. It's dark. It's freezing cold. So we've got to bring it alive. We put them in an ice bath. No one dies. They come flying out like salmon. It's ridiculous to suggest anything's going to go wrong with it. It is a spectacular start to the discussion. Then we have a conversation at about the same time in history. Shackleton is saving his men's life in what is effectively Mars and that part of history. He's lost his ship, he's stuck in Antarctica, and he's got to get 28 men home. He has a reflex action to looking after those in his care. They have to make do with tiny little scraps that are left from the ship, and he gets them home. At the same time, the Titanic, full of primped with human pride, is steaming across the Atlantic with a fourth fake funnel just so it looks bigger. It's representative maybe of some of the worst things of society at the time, and that's the discussion we have as grade 7s. Now, I need to know that you know what a compare and contrast is. Present it to me, somehow. Raymond goes home, dresses as a survivor, chucks in the wooden plank, gets Dad with the camera, rehearses, gets his whole compare and contrast right, dives in the pool and presents it. Tick the box, compare and contrast, done. Another one, quickly. A wonderful, wonderful novel, Cold Mountain, the American Civil War, the academic itinerary, journal writing, creative writing and note-taking. Alternatives, worksheet, textbook, give me a break. Cold Mountain, the first 4 pages. American Civil War, soldier lying desperately ill, looking out a window, and this sentence just keeps jumping out. The sentence just keeps jumping out at me, as I'm sure you can see it there. The amputations had proceeded past the knee and he smelled all the time like last year's ham. Got to get back to the main writing task first of all. A view from a window that evokes a memory. A lot of discussion, a lot of going home, looking out windows, planning the writing, but something to trigger it, something to start the thinking. The journal writing, a rotten ham journal. Pieces of ham, 2 weeks in the sun in March. Photographed every second day. Texture, appearance, there's your journal taking. Texture, appearance and smell is noted and recorded over 14 days. Bit of globalisation, we invite boys in Scotland to join us at Edinburgh Academy School. But it's March there, so it won't rot outside, it freezes. So it's got to come inside and sit on heaters in the school for 2 weeks. But, there's discussion, there's interaction about the research work we did to trigger this story and reference sites from the boys. We've got to start to think about the future of education. And, it's been here for a while. Computers have been in classrooms for 25 years. We have to get over the fact that having 1,000 computers in our school does not make us the future of education. We have to start to understand that we've got to be true in getting students to be able to present their absolute, demonstrate their capacity for intellect superbly. It is a challenge, and it's going to take a special group of teachers to understand this and to begin to deliver the messages. But the future of education it's been sitting there a while. That classic anecdote that if a doctor came back after 50 years, or an engineer came back after 50 years, you know, he wouldn't know where to start. You wouldn't miss a beat if you went into a classroom. We've got to rev it up. Technology, as someone fantastically said in education, is too often about putting rockets on stagecoaches. We've got to change our thinking. We've got a team of people to smash open that door because it's starting to rot. 200 years. And that, probably those doors, I think, the future of education, you know, it should be a conversation we were having 50 years ago, but let's have it now. We need teachers with 4 qualities, and it should help us enormously in being able to distinguish. There are countless thousands of honourable, hard-working teachers who have a passion for a subject, who engage their students and get good results. That's a good thing. But to my mind, that's level 1. Subject knowledge, passion, the traditional model. 2, an awareness and a passion for the capacity of intellect. Understanding what we now call 21st century skills, but heavens above, they've been around for thousands of years. But to get a position, to have a job, but also more importantly to be engaged and participate in society, you've got to have those skills of collaboration, problem solving and work collaboratively and know technology. So you've got to have as a teacher an awareness and a passion for those. Level 2. Level 3, you've got to possess many of those. You've got to be innovative and creative. You've got to work collaborative. You've got to be able to communicate your vision. You've got to be able to say what you want to be a part of in teaching. And let me tell you why. Because the last skill you're going to need, probably along with a mouth guard, you've got to have professional vision and a bit of steel, a bit of resilience. This is a 200-year-old operation that every school in the country is designed around. There's a very defined pathway, and don't get in its way. Don't start bringing change into this. That's what the arguments we've got to change. Thousands of teachers know that. But too often the microsystem that runs the system tells us there are too many problems, we can't change it. But if you have a fundamental belief that your intellect is not being revealed through a pen in a 3-hour exam room, silent, then I think you might be onto something and you should seriously think about teaching. The primary and junior school and middle school teachers, it's going to be a fantastic ride. The art of teaching and the science of learning. There is no more qualified person on the planet who knows more about the art of teaching and the science of learning than a junior primary teaching. An outstanding junior primary teacher knows more about teaching and learning than anybody else, and it's all downhill after that. We do not need the traditional model of parachuting these superstar teachers into classrooms and hope it just spreads out. That's not the case either. It doesn't need to be like that. The technology allows us to work with small groups, not in countless thousands of online courses. That won't work either. But you can have a class of 10 online from 10 different locations and work with them throughout the day. We're doing it now. I'm doing it now here. And that's the first steps in making this change. You need to have teachers who know that have an infinite expectation of joy in the job, and know that in their classes there are those different capacities. There are the poetic champions who compose and interpret and prepare and love literature. There are the masters of science and the sultans of numbers who love to construct and solve. And yes, there are also those effortlessly fluent and out there creative types. They're all in your class, and everyone has the capacity to develop the skills in the other. And that's the challenge as we try and put together these demonstrations of understanding. So that's the plan. I seriously want you to think about it and make sure that we teach with passion, colour and noise. And also, if you enjoy shaking the joint up a bit, it's a good time to join. Thank you.